Alright, so if you remember last time in Class Stanley, we were reading and Stanley had just arrived in China and he said he was so hungry. So we're going to take him to go get some Chinese food. Let's see what happened. The restaurant was crowded with people, but there was no food on the round tables, apart from tiny steaming bowls of tea in front of each person. Stanley suddenly realized everyone had been waiting for him. There was a hush as the old There was a hush as the oldest woman looking at Stanley had seen. There was a hush as the oldest looking woman Stanley had ever seen, older than even Carlos's grandmother in Mexico, struggled to her feet at the other side of the room. Yin whispered in Stanley's ear, "Great grandmother Yin would like to wish you good luck before you begin your training." Stanley was about to walk over, but Yang stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. The ancient woman slowly straightened her back, raising her shaking hands from the back of a chair, and launched herself into the air. She flipped onto the nearest table and then did handsprings from one table to another all the way around the room. She failed to disturb a single cup of tea before landing right in front of Stanley and giving him a toothless smile. My goodness. Can you imagine? Do you think your grandma could do that? Mine definitely could not. Stanley was stunned. The old woman giggled, grabbed him by the side of his stomach, and shook him. He couldn't help laughing at his head and feet swung back and forth through the air. And then suddenly his body made a low rhythmic sound as the air rushed around him. Stanley didn't know his body could do that. Yin and Yang and their family roared with laughter. Everyone waited to fill their plates until Yin and Yang's grandparents and great grandparents were served. Then all the relatives chattered and slurped and ate. Stanley carefully adjusted his chopsticks and tried to pick up a piece of food. Instead, one of the chopsticks tilted like a seesaw, and the piece landed in Yang's soup with a splash. Yang put down his own chopsticks. "It's time for turnip cake's first lesson," he announced. Yin agreed. "Let's start with an ancient feat of balance and skill." Stanley leaned closer. "Holding a pencil," finished Yang. Stanley rolled his eyes. "I already know how to do that," he said, holding one of his chopsticks like a pencil and moving it up and down. "You are very skilled," teased Yang. "Now do you see the cradle formed by your thumb and first finger?" he said Yang. That's where the other sleeping chopstick lies its head. The leg rests on its fourth finger. Look, it doesn't move, it only sleeps." Stanley flipped the second chopstick into its cradle. Lifting its bowl, Stanley used the first chopstick to trap a piece of food against the one resting below it. He carefully lifted the food to his mouth and dropped it in. It worked. Stanley immediately tried again. "Turnip cake learns fast," Yang commented as Stanley flung one thing after another into his mouth. Stanley tried lots of new things: rice with meat cooked in a leaf, spicy pork and vegetables, even turnip cake, which was surprisingly jiggly. But his favorite dish of all was a local specialty: bang bang noodles, which were almost as flat and wide as he was. As Yin and Yang's aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, and great grandparents filed by his table to say goodbye, Stanley was so full he almost didn't feel flat. He couldn't understand a word anyone said, but they all seemed very friendly. Great grandmother Yin made some music by shaking his sides one more time before hobbling out the door. Soon Yin, Yang, and Stanley were the only ones left. It was getting late, and Stanley was tired. But then, out of nowhere, a squinting old man with three long white hairs sprouting from his chin appeared at the table. "Hello, young ones," said the man in English. "Hello," flattened Stanley. "Hello, great Uncle Yang," said Yin. "We did not see you." "I've been hiding behind the teapot," said great Uncle Yang. Stanley was speechless. Finally he forced himself to say, "How do you do?" "With a great deal of practice," the old man replied. "As you can see, teapots are very small." "There's the great Uncle Yang." "Great Uncle Yang is a contortionist," explained Yin. "He can twist himself into many unusual positions. Your body must be very flexible," marveled Stanley. No more flexible than yours, the man said with a smile, but my mind bends farther. Stanley's forehead crinkled as he tried to figure out what that meant. He decided to change the subject. Yang has the same name as you. Yin laughed. Many people in our family are named Yin and Yang, she explained. Our ancestors have been known throughout China for centuries. It was my sister Yin who greeted you, said the old man. Great grandmother Yin is your sister? Stanley gasped. Great Uncle Yang chuckled to himself, then fixed Stanley with a powerful stare. You cannot have Yin without Yang, understand? Stanley looked at him blankly. Yin and Yang are not only our names, they are words that describe the sacred balance of nature. There is no day without night, there is no hot without cold. He looked from Yin. There is no tempest to Yang without calm. And there is no flat without, his voice trailed off suddenly. Thick? Stanley offered. Fat? Suggested Yin. Round? Suggested Yang. Without not flat, Great Uncle Yang finished. Yin and Yang mean opposing forces in balance. This, flattened Stanley, is why you are here, said the man. You can keep them in balance. There are only 10 days left before the Flying Chinese Wonders are to perform in the Forbidden City. All three of you have much to learn and much to teach. Are you ready? The three of them nodded. Begin with Mount Hushan, said Great Uncle Yang. Then he whisked a napkin from the table, shook it, and disappeared into thin air. So that was the end of chapter 3. Do you think that Great Uncle Yang is going to be the one to teach Stanley how to do those amazing tricks? Chapter 4 is called Learning to Fly. I wonder if in the next chapter Stanley will learn to fly. I'll have to see tomorrow to find out. Bye, guys.